So you wrestle with anxiety. If you didn't, you wouldn't be watching this right now and signed up for this course. So anxiety is a foe that you face, and it's a foe that I have faced all throughout my life, and at one point was a daily, nightly, debilitating thing. Now I am, for the most part, free from it. There are little battles that I have to fight here and there, but for the most part, I am free from the anxiety. So before we talk about how we can solve it, we have to actually define what it is. So one of the things that I realized was that when you are younger, like when I was, say, 16, 17, or even 19, 20, or even 22, when I would think about anxiety, I always saw it as one thing: a lack of faith. I would say, okay, this is just a lack of faith, or somehow a lack of strength. Somehow, I was somehow missing something that if I had that thing, I would be able to beat the anxiety. But that's not actually the case. When you get older, you come to realize that there's a lot of things that really just aren't so simple. You know, you can say, for example, smoking causes lung cancer. Well, that's true, but that doesn't mean that every cause of lung cancer is because the person smoked. There's many things that can lead to lung cancer, of which we know if you smoke, that's certainly one of them. So, can a lack of faith cause anxiety? Well, yeah. I have rent due on the first of every month. I have to have faith that the Lord's promise that He makes is true, which is, if you seek first the kingdom of God and its righteousness, you don't have to worry about, He says, all these things, of which one of them was what you're going to eat and what you're going to wear and where you're going to sleep. I don't have to worry about those things. But if I am, there's a chance it's because I'm not believing Him. I don't believe Him. And so in that case, it would be a lack of faith. But if you find yourself terrified, for example, to be alone, if you find yourself waking up in the middle of the night with panic attacks, if you find yourself unnecessarily stressed out, it seems, over your job, over your future, paranoid that you're going to make the wrong decision, if you find yourself worried that you're wasting your life away and wasting time, if you find yourself worried that you're going to screw up your relationships or screw up your relationship with your girl, if you find that you're worried that you may never find a girl, you may never find a wife, you may never have kids, if you find yourself constantly feeling like a disappointment, and so anytime you're not perfect, anxiety comes about, those are not evidences of a lack of faith. Those are evidences of another issue. So in order to address the anxiety that those issues cause, we have to first address the issue that causes the anxiety. Because if you and me just simply try to cure the anxiety without solving the underlying cause, all we're doing is solving the symptom. And you may think, that's all I want. All I want is to solve the symptom. And fair enough. A cancer patient who has lung cancer is sitting there going, well, I can't see the cancer in my lungs. I just want to stop coughing up blood and being in pain. If you solve the coughing up blood and solve the being in pain, then I don't care anymore. It's like, well, yeah, but in order to do that, we have to remove the tumor. In order to solve and cure and conquer this anxiety that's tormenting you, we have to understand where it comes from first. So let me tell you a little story. Anxiety for me was something I dealt with from as young as I can remember. When I was 6 years old, I was crying in the shower, overcome with incredible anxiety because I was worried that I had cratered my relationship with my mother, because as she was driving to go to the store, as she was driving away from our house, I was upset that she didn't let me go with her, so I threw a dirt clod at the car. And when bedtime came around and my dad's putting me to bed at like 7 o'clock and my mom's still not home yet, I was terrified that I had destroyed my relationship with my mom. This later turned into things regarding health. When I was 12 and 13 years old, I was worried about every health issue under the sun. When I was 8 years old, my grandparents' dog got diagnosed with liver problems. I didn't even know what the liver was. And yet, what did I find myself worried about to the point I was losing sleep when I was 8? Worried that I had liver problems. Worried that I had diabetes. When I got to college, I was worried about heart problems. At one point, when I was 24 years old, I was so worried about heart problems that I went to the doctor multiple times, and he eventually had to sit down with me and have a come to Jesus meeting about the fact that there was nothing wrong with my heart. But even though I went to that doctor over and over again, he would tell me that my heart is good and the anxiety would be okay for about a day or two, and then it would start to come back. Here's what I later realized. The anxiety was lying to me about what I was anxious about. So think of the thing that is most tormenting you with anxiety right now. There may be multiple things. If you're like me, there is surely a multiple things. You may be thinking, what area of my life am I not anxious about? So just pick one. Just pick the one that is most tormenting you. Think about that one for a second. And now ask yourself, what is the underlying fear with this? What am I actually worried about? When I had my heart worry, and I would go to the doctor over and over again, I had to ask myself, what am I really worried about? Oh, well, I'm worried about heart problems. Oh, okay, well, that's what you say, and that's what it is on the surface. Okay, let's say you're worried about heart problems. Okay, you have heart problems. What now? Oh, well, I have to go to the doctor. Okay, well, there's doctors. So what's wrong with going to the doctor? Well, I'm worried that it's going to cost a lot of money. Okay, well, a lot of stuff costs a lot of money, but you've got family, you've got resources, and more than that, you've got a God who promises to always have your back, and that you don't have to worry about anything. So you don't need to worry about the money. What are you really worried about? And I had to think, and I had to ask myself a series of questions. And I got all the way down to this. And I'm going to tell you the answer, and then I'll explain backwards how I got there. I was not worried about my heart. I was worried about being rejected by people that I loved. What? How in the world does that relate to worrying about your health? How in the world does that mean that all of the health issues that I had worried about from the time I was 8, worrying about liver problems, all the way up to being 24 years old, worrying about my heart, or being 26 years old and worried that I had a blood clot in my leg when I clearly didn't? What were all of those worries? I was worried about being rejected by the people I love. I was worried about being alone in suffering, emotionally or even physically, but primarily emotionally alone. What woman wants to marry a guy with terminal heart failure? My future would be gone. My prospect of love would be destroyed. The lineage, all the way back to Adam, there were a series of men who have succeeded in having children that carry on their legacy, and it comes all the way down to me, and the lineage dies at the end with me because I didn't take care of my body. And then I die at a young age, swollen, fat, incapable of doing the things that I wanted to do, and maybe a little unloved by my family because of the huge medical burden that I am on them. And at the young age of 24, 25, I die and leave my family in a ton of pain because I didn't take care of my body. That is what I was worried about. And so he would tell me that the heart issue is okay. And it went as far as, and I'll be super brief with this, it went as far as he told me, well, if you're having chest pain while running because that's what I was dealing with. He said, if it were really a heart issue, it wouldn't hurt at the beginning of the workout. It would hurt at the end. Well, it started hurting at the end after that. So I go back and he says, well, it's hurting on the right side. Your heart's on the left, so it would hurt on the left. And then it started hurting on the left side. And so there was a bunch of things like that. Eventually I go back to him again and he sits me down, grabs my face, looks me in the eye and says, I'm not supposed to use this word as a doctor, but your heart is perfect. Stop worrying and go live your life. Guys, I did stop worrying about my heart, but I didn't stop worrying about my health. And it wasn't until I solved the underlying issue, which was the fear of being alone and the fear of rejection, that the worrying about my health stopped. What was interesting is if there really was something wrong with my body, all I cared about was if it was my fault or not. If I had a genetic heart issue, anxiety was relieved for the most part. But if it was my fault, it'd be a way bigger deal. So look at that anxiety, that one that I asked you to think about 5 minutes ago. You may be convinced it's one thing, like how I was convinced that there really is something wrong with my heart, or I really do have type 2 diabetes. You may be convinced it's one thing, but it's actually something else. Ask the question, why am I afraid of this? Why am I afraid of this outcome? We'll take being alone, for example. Why am I afraid of being alone? What is the fear with that? Lean into that anxiety. I know that's such a paradoxical thing to say. Lean into that anxiety right now for just a minute. We can lean right back out and pull back out of that anxiety. Let's just lean in for a second. What are you really worried about? Are you really worried about being alone? Or are you worried about something happening while you're alone? Are you worried about dying alone? Are you worried about somebody breaking in while you're alone? Are you worried about missing out on something because you're alone? Are you worried that you're missing life and life is just passing by while you sit idly by all by yourself because you're alone? And then once you figure out that question, you ask yourself the next question, which is, so why am I worried about that? And you begin to peel back the onion layers and you begin to see what you're worried about very well may not be what you're worried about. I used to be paranoid about losing my salvation to the degree that I thought that if I took an early lunch break while in college, if I took an early lunch break for my while doing my math studies, that I would lose my salvation. I'm not even kidding. I used to have that anxiety. I was worried about, like losing my salvation. But what it really was a fear of being rejected by God. And why did I fear that? I feared being alone. I feared being a mistake. I feared being rejected. I feared not being understood. I felt like God operated by the letter of the law and not the spirit of the law. I felt like God didn't have common sense. So that is one of the first areas, and I spent a little longer on that than I wanted to, but I really wanted to help flesh that out for you, that one of the reasons that you may be experiencing anxiety is because there are a few underlying issues that are contributing to them. So it could be a multitude of things. And really the only way to find that out is going to be some self-reflection. It's going to be some journaling. But that's all good because that's a part of this course and we're going to walk through that together. The second, and this one I have found is really common, and really the second one is often very much a part of the first one. So another reason for anxiety is improper alignment. I'll say that again. Another reason for anxiety is improper alignment. Am I talking spine? No, I'm talking improper alignment in your life. To put it simply, you're not being who God made you to be, and you're trying to be something else, something or someone else. Or you have one area of yourself that's fighting against another area of yourself. So we have 3 parts, not 4, 3 parts. Your spirit, which is the thing that makes you who you are. That is what makes you in the image of God. Then you have your soul, which is your mind, your will, and your emotions. And then you have your flesh, which is this physical body that actually operates in the world. Sometimes your soul, the way it's designed, is we're supposed to work from the top down. From the spirit commands down through the soul, which is the mind, will, and emotions, and then finally down into the flesh, which actively navigates the world. But oftentimes, the flesh and the soul, because we're fallen, will grab at the steering wheel of your person and try to take control. So your emotions may be trying to exert control over you when really the spirit has to rest above it and rule down through the emotions. So this is not me saying we have to deny our emotions, but rather it's me saying that we have to live in the proper alignment. So if I am made, for example, if I am made to be a minister, which that's what I'm made to do, I am made to help young men find their masculine purpose in God. But my soul is over here going, oh man, like we need money, and believe me, money's a good thing to try to go and get, but it's sitting over here saying, man, we can open construction back up and we can go make a ton of money. Man, Mitch, you were making close to $7,000 a week whenever you were in construction. You just do that again and all your worries will go away. And so I stop walking out my calling, which rests in my spirit, and I start doing what my soul wants me to do, which is go and acquire these physical things that I can see in front of me, because this will make me feel better and feel better as a man, and you provided for your family and you've built this great house and so on and so forth. If I try to do that, guess what? I've already tried. I'm living out of alignment with who I am. My soul is trying to grab at the steering wheel and say, I know what we need. I'm in charge. And if you don't listen to me, I'm giving you anxiety. While the spirit is sitting there going, this is not what I was made for. I was not made to be a carpenter. I was made to help young men find their masculine purpose, or whatever your purpose is. You were made for something that another part of you is telling you that you weren't made for, that you need to do something else. You're living out of alignment. So when I was in college, I wanted to be a lawyer. Actually, I didn't. I was told that I should be a lawyer. So I go to a school, guys. I go to a state I never wanted to live in, a school that I couldn't stand and never wanted to go to, roomed with a bunch of people that I did not vibe with at all. And then I pursue a career I didn't care about. I wasn't made to be a lawyer, but yet I was pursuing it anyway. Guys, I ran into anxiety that was seemingly unconquerable. And gentlemen, when I asked God to take that anxiety away from me, guess what he said? No. No, I'm not. Why did he say that? Because guys, if he had taken the anxiety from me, if he had actually taken the anxiety from me, then I would have stayed at that school and gone on and become a lawyer. And guess what? I would be running into the same issue all over again, anxiety and depression all over again, because I wasn't made to be a lawyer living in Washington, D.C., wearing suits, shaking hands and being all fake. I was not made to do that. And so God was like, Mitch, I am saving you by not saving you from the underlying cause or from the symptom. I want to save you from the underlying cause. So God didn't remove the symptom of anxiety. He cured the cause of anxiety. And so for you, God wants to, and I know this because it's in his word, he wants to free you from the anxieties. He wants to free you from the stresses. But understand, if you're quoting these verses and you actually believe them, and you're not one of these people who you're just kind of pushing God off to the side, and your anxiety is what I would call a worldly anxiety, like, oh my gosh, how in the world am I going to make rent? Fair anxiety, truly fair anxiety, but I'm worried that how am I going to make rent? How am I going to make rent? Okay, well, are you in a relationship with the Lord? Because the Lord tells us not to worry about any of these things. If you're not one of those people, and you're somebody who's wrestling with these anxieties that seem to just not freaking go away, it's probably because God is saying, I'm not going to save you from the symptom without saving you from the cause. That is the equivalent of us saying, God, I'm coughing up blood and my chest hurts. Please stop the coughing up blood and hurting chest. And he's like, in order to do that, I got to remove the cancer from your lungs, Mitch. And I'm like, no, don't remove the cancer from my lungs. I don't want to go through chemotherapy. I don't want to go. And you know what? Fair enough. I don't want to go through that stuff. I don't want to go to therapy. I don't want to face these issues. I just want the anxiety to stop. But reality is, he loves us too much. And so, gentlemen, real, truly honorable thing for us to do as men is to face our issues. So look at these anxieties. Look at the thing that you're most worried about all the time. I would encourage you to write it down and then spend some time in prayer with the Lord and say, God, I don't need all the answers right this second. I sure would love it. If you want to give it, I'll take it. But as for right now, I want to focus on this one thing. How do I overcome this anxiety? Number one. And number two, why am I dealing with it? What is the real issue underneath it? Am I worried about my health because I'm just worried about being rejected by the people that I love? Am I worried about being alone because I don't know who I am in God? And so when I'm alone, I'm uncomfortable with the fact that I have to face certain things within me, that when I'm with other people, their validation quiets those insecurities and concerns in myself? Am I anxious about not being in the will of God because I'm terrified of making a mistake? There's any of those other number of things. And so ask him specifically, what is the real cause of that underlying anxiety? And then write those things down, spend some time contemplating and reading on it, and contemplating on the things we've talked about today, and then bring it to the live call in order to discuss. As I've always said, the live calls are completely and totally confidential. And so they will not make their way outside of this group. And so a part of that is also your pledge. When you hear other gentlemen who are voicing their anxieties and concerns, do not share with them or with others about their stuff that they're dealing with, because that's their business, not ours. So bring those things to the live call and ask the Lord what the underlying cause is of this anxiety. What is the cause that is giving me the symptom of anxiety? Where is the misalignment, God? Where is the issue that I'm not dealing with? Where is the thing that I'm refusing to let go of? And then watch and see what he does. I'll see you all on the live call. Love y'all.